It's just not enforced.
Of course it is.
Before we go to break, can you use your coyote analogy? And in this case, we're not talking about coyote, smuggler. Your analogy about an HOA and a fence.
Of course. Can we do it now?
Yes.
I'd be happy to.
I'd like to hear this.
One of the things that I kind of explained, kind of in a brief analogy, and I'm not
Attorney General
to
Holder?
the Attorney General Holder, and not to, and I'm going to do the disclaimer right now, so people, I am not equating animals to people, but it's an analogy that perhaps someone can get. I have a large acreage, and my back fence, and I have other neighbors that have equally large acreage. I can't see my back fence, but we know there's a hole there. Been out there many times. The hole is enormous. Because of my compact, I am not responsible for fixing the hole in the fence. Someone else is. Each and every night, 50 predator animals, and along with other nice guys, bunnies and every other kind of thing, comes into my backyard. And they began first just to eat. All they want to do is, I've got fields, but I've got game and livestock and other things. But they come in each and every night. Some go back, but very few. Most come and they stay. Then they began to bite my children, and then they began to continue to cause property damage, devastate my livestock. But more importantly, this is now becoming financially onerous to me. And then now they've killed one of my children. I can continue to complain. First of all, I have to fix the back fence to stop the leak. So I told Mr. Holder, sir, you're exactly right. And most of the folks on the other side of this issue are exactly right. We need to fix the fence. Mr. Holder, that's your job. But for all the predators and all the bad guys, and I'm not trying to make everybody that comes through there nefarious. There are folks that all they want to do is just come for a better life. I'm not going there. All I'm saying is that the ones that did get in, the ones that are biting and killing and raping and maiming. As a matter of fact, you'd be surprised, they're not all good people coming across that border. Many folks escaping criminal prosecution in their home countries. Where do they come? They come into a place where they can blend with very little risk of discovery. If you're not, it's like the border's the finish line. All I got to do is get there, because there seems to be systemic indifference if I get on the other side.
And you said it's your job to take out, clean up what's come into your yard. It's his job, Eric Holder, the federal government, to finish that fence.
Right. And I want to also say that I'm not intimating that police officers want to do routine immigration enforcement. We've heard that nonsense characterized on a daily basis. When police officers get tools, it doesn't mean I drive up and down the street. I have the ability now, or when we got computers in our cars, to run randomly record checks each and every day. Police officers don't spend their entire shift running around finding out if you paid all your parking tickets. We don't have time, nor do we have the law enforcement predisposition to do that.
And when we come back with Levi Bolton, lobbyist and consultant for the Police Law Enforcement Association, part of that meeting with Attorney General Eric Holder, he's going to tell us the practicality on the street with officers. How much of a burden is this? We've been told it's a big burden. He says not at all. Back on Newsmaker Sunday in a moment. Welcome back. Levi Bolton is our guest on Newsmaker Sunday, lobbyist, consultant for the Police Law Enforcement Association, just returning from a visit with Attorney General of the United States, William Holder, talking about SB 1070, how it will be applied, whether it's problematic for police. As you know, Attorney General Holder, Eric Holder, pardon me. Eric Holder, about a month ago when he was before a congressional committee, admitted that he had not read the law. Do you think he had read it now?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we were jokingly, he said, and by the way, for the record, I have read the bill. And
did any of that, when he read it, seem to change his opinion of it?
Because we didn't have any dialogue per se, the first thing Mr. Holder did, and like I said, I'm not going to associate or speculate as to where he was going, because it looked like he was being thoughtful. There were a lot of note takers. He had members of his civil rights division sitting in the back portion of the room. So we know that the meeting was well memorialized. Aside from him personally taking notes, because I saw him, there were a lot of people that were aide-de-camp staff members.
But he's engaged. He's genuinely interested in what's going on.
But there was no exchange. All he did was listen to testimony.
Let me ask you, Levi, you spent 32 years Phoenix PD on the street. And you called ICE many times in your career.
Yes.
When status was an issue.
Yes.
What does 1070 change?
Not a thing. Not a thing. Folks would say that I have, and it does. Now, not a thing with a caveat. Where reasonable suspicion exists that someone's in the country. Walking down the street, reasonable suspicion doesn't exist that a person's in the country illegally. I would have to have some predicate. 3 circumstances: consent, reasonable suspicion, or probable cause. Police officers today, do we make consensual contacts? Of course we do. Even a victim is a consensual, or someone who's calling the police. But what have they done from that deal that would give me reasonable suspicion? Not a thing. That would not have changed. So I would have no reason to go into that dialogue. Skin color and ethnicity is not indicia of criminality.
A couple of things. When people say, well, you're going to have to carry papers around, you hear this quoted all the time on the national news. People, guests come on, the talking heads, they say, well, it's not right that in Arizona you got to carry your papers. We just heard that this week out of New Mexico. There's concern that people coming over from New Mexico, some of whom are illegal and are able to obtain driver's licenses in New Mexico, are worried about what may happen to them here.
That is absolutely and patently absurd. First of all, again, I'm not surprised anymore that people aren't reading the bill. First of all, it says that if you present a valid driver's license or ID card issued by some other state, or any other government-issued ID, where it was their responsibility to determine legal presence.
So a New Mexico license is fine.
The issue is done. There's a presumption that you are here lawfully if you make that presentation. And if you don't have it with you, we can find out. We just simply run a records check.
Let me ask you about that, because people have argued, well, what if I'm out walking and I don't happen to be carrying my license with me? I'm out on a morning walk and I'm of brown color, and somehow I get stopped for some reason or another. How do you find out who they are? There are ways, right?
Oh, of course there are. First of all, John, everyone likes to take it, and I find this with the political types who don't do law enforcement. Why did I stop you? If you're throwing bottles or kicking things out into the street or making cat calls or anything,
public urination,
then I own you anyway.
Okay.
You had better be able to find.
It's a strong word.
Well, of course, and I say that in the sense, please forgive me when I say that. I don't mean that to be euphemistic, because this is not a funny topic. But I'm trying to add almost some brevity to the point, to the idea that folks need to get a clue. If, John, you certainly, if you were driving your car and you had to use the bathroom late at night and you pulled into a place, no one's around, and you started urinating, you had better have something with your name on it, and I better be able to find you in my computer. Because if you're born right here in Phoenix, Arizona, and I could not be satisfied as to who you are to hold you responsible for the conduct for which I may or may not charge you, you're going with me.
Right. And that has to do not with the color of your skin, but there may be a concern you're a felon, you're not who you're saying you are. You may have warrants out of other states.
Absolutely. And every American understands that that is your obligation. Police officers manage conduct, sir. You
are part of, and I hope I'm not speaking out of school, but you are part of the group that is going through determining the training for officers to deal with implementation of 1070.
That's correct. I did participate as one of them. How
difficult is this? How much more training is required? How big of a deal is this?